Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Appakate manussesu te jana paragamino. Athayang itara pajati remevanu dhavati. Most Venerable Sandabhanti and Venerable monks and friends in Dhamma, I must apologize for delay, unexpected traffic on the freeway. However, I'm glad to be here once again, and thank you, Bhante, for having me here one more time. It's always difficult to choose a topic to suit the audience, because we have different interests, we have different questions. So I'll keep my talk brief and leave more time to discuss ideas that related to the topic I'm going to talk. I remember last time when I visited, we talked about karma and how karma is important in our life and it's not fixed. So that's the beauty of Buddhist teaching about karma. Karma is not deterministic idea that you always need to abide by. If you put effort, if you know the path, you can even change your karma. That's what we talked in our last discussion and also my talk. So I thought to go along with that. I opened the Pali stanza, Appakate manussesu te jana paragamino. This is again from Dhammapada, a beautiful collection of Buddha's teaching, where it says, many people go around the samsara. Only few of them manage to get over this cycle of samsara. And it's a huge question to us. Some people ask, is that really true? You know, we see that we are increasing in population. We're almost close to 8 billion human beings. How is this teaching true that if people go around samsara, how come there are more humans? Well, if you put in perspective, in compared to other living beings, humans are not that many. So if you take the ocean, right, one kind of fish, you know, if you count them, they are trillions in compared to humans. And if you put all of the animals, all of the living beings, we are not really many. So among these humans, many of them keep going in this cycle of samsara. We are born as human, but we continue in this cycle. And not many people think about breaking this cycle. I think that's why Buddha wanted to tell, you know, many beings, not humans, many beings go around this cycle. Only few of them manage to break. And if you want to break that cycle, I think there is definitely some effort. Because during the Buddha's time, some teachers believed that you don't need to worry much about this life and death, because they use this analogy of a ball of string. If you open a ball of string down the hill, it will continue unfolding as long as the string is there. At one point, it will end. So is the life of living beings. You will be born, you will be dead, you will be born and dead, and at one point you will stop existing. That's one type of belief. But as Buddhists, we have little different understanding about this cycle. The cycle continues as long as we continue accumulating some kind of karmic results. So in order to reduce that, we have path. And I'm going to keep that to this 8 noble path, because we talk a lot about mindfulness, which is one of the paths, one of the 8 paths, but we don't emphasize much on the rest of the path. and I like to talk about mindfulness. I also study about mindfulness. I'm still trying to bring in some of these ideas, which is not only mindfulness but also the other part of this path. And in the West, it's easy to pull the best part of these different medication. You extrapolate the essence and try to use it, and it works to some extent. Right? It will work. That's what we see the benefit of mindfulness. It works. Now I'm trained in clinical psychology, and I see that how people use mindfulness to not cure, maybe prevent, or as an intervention for addiction. Now there's one popular researcher, he uses mindfulness as a way to cure addiction, drugs, behavioral addiction, all those addictions. And Jon Kabat-Zinn, he used mindfulness to manage stress, and some cognitive behavior therapy, they use mindfulness to reduce rumination and improve your mood. So they try to use this, and it worked to some extent. And there's always a lot of criticism about these approaches, because how come they work to some extent and it stops working? And in my opinion, because you took that one piece out of 8, and that's why it's not working to the full potential. It doesn't work because you're lacking 7 out of 8, and that 7 is included in Eightfold Path. That's what we see. If we put it together, this Eightfold Path are 3 ways to improve and reduce this cycle of samsara. And that's what I'm trying to connect with. And the starting point is just like a good sight. If you begin some journey, you need to have good sight, good vision of your journey. That's the first one, Sammaditthi. And that good sight comes with clear understanding. The Buddha's teaching, the core plan of his teaching is Yatha Bhuta Jnana Dasana. And when you practice meditation, when you practice mindfulness, I'm sure you have been trained or heard that try to let your experience come in and observe the nature of experience, whether it is pleasant or painful, whether it is physical or mental. So you're told, you're constantly trained, can you observe whatever happens to your meditation? And the underlying message is, can you see these experiences as they are? Yatha Bhuta means as they exist. Can you develop this sight to these experiences as they are, without adding any kind of your predisposition, any kind of your expectations? People sometimes come and ask question about meditation. I used to conduct meditation class in the temple where I lived, Morna Valley Temple, and some long-term practitioners, they practice mindfulness for some time, and they come and complain. I was a monk, so they say, Bante, I used to be good at meditation. Now I can't practice anymore. I used to have this bright light in my practice. When I sit down and sit for 30 minutes, I can see light. It's so serene, it's so peaceful. It doesn't happen to me anymore. I'm sure some of you can relate with those experiences. And my understanding is, well, if you are seeking that light and serenity in your practice, you already went off the path. You are not trying to observe the nature of experience, but you're trying to gain what you liked in that practice. So the first teaching, first path in Eightfold Path is have this clear vision, have this clear path. And these Eightfold Paths are not separate. You cannot separate one from the other. They go hand to hand. If you lack first one, the rest will not work properly. And that's what I see in lots of this Western, research-based mindfulness. It works to some extent, but it stops working because it is taken out of the rest. So the first one, the right understanding, right vision. The second one is Samma Sankappa, right thought. Your intention is not only to improve your mental quality, not only to improve your mood, but it has a bigger, broader reasoning. Your plan is to purify your mind, have more positive, have more openness in your mind. Instead of trying to find temporary peace, you're trying to reduce, accumulating more defilements, and that comes from expectation, that comes from your desire to be happy, your desire to be peaceful. So Samma Sankappa is, how can I reduce strong reaction toward this encounters. Like we constantly face troubles. When I drive here, there was a couple of cars, they pull out from nowhere. Are you able to stop being impulsive when you face those situations? And I think we talked about this moment. If you take a moment of mindfulness, your purpose is to zoom in, lengthen that moment and being aware about your immediate instinct reaction and choosing how to respond instead of reacting. The instinct reaction is not your choice. You just do. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. But a response is you choose, how can I handle this situation? So Samma Sankappa gives you that ability, having better thoughts, which is free from anger and hatred. And third one is Samma Sankappa and Samma Vacha. It's not only limited to thinking, it goes beyond thinking, your verbal action, how you speak. When you talk, it's the most complicated one to control, because we can talk very nice, we can talk very sweet, but intention is sometimes not the best, not the same as you talk. So Buddha was warning, can you have that speech, and the word is samma. It's not good, it is right speech. So you're not trying to please people, you're trying to stay with the correct, the right path. So Samma Vacha has multiple, but at least be watchful, be mindful of what you speak. Samma Kammanta, with your bodily action. So I'll leave up to there, and I'll try to address the rest in later. So when you think of these four, Sammaditthi, the right vision, right thought, right speech, and right action, those four paths are addressing what kind of life you lead. And mindfulness applies in all those situations. It's not only when you sit down and try to spend few minutes observing your breath or your bodily sensation. It's even when you talk, even when you think, and even when you move your body. And I tell loving kindness practice, we like to do, I think here we hear that, may I be well, happy and peaceful, may I be free from anger and hatred. All these positive words we use in loving kindness practice. But that does not complete your practice. It has to do with your verbal and physical action. Can you act mindfully? Which means, when you treat somebody, when you have to deal with a difficult person, how kind you are in that action. And when you speak to somebody, how kind you are with your words. And those matters, because these paths should go together. They should keep together, and that's where it leads to, we try to reduce accumulating more karma, more dispositions, because every moment of mindlessness is every moment of another karmic result. So I'll put this way, imagine if you have 1,000 karma, which is a lot more than what I'm giving you example of. So in a day we make millions of karma. Now that might scare you a little bit, and myself, right? We make millions of karma, and every karma has a consequence. So that sounds like a lot. The attempt here is, if you make 1,000 karma, and let's say out of 1,000 we make 100 good karma in one day, that means still we have 900 karma that is not based on good root. So the good roots are free from hatred, free from desire, free from delusion. Those are good roots. And bad roots are desire, hatred, and delusion. So if your 900 karmas are based on these unwholesome roots, there are 900 karma every day we are accumulating. And that's where this appakate manusesu, only few people manage to overcome this cycle. Many of them keep going in cycle because of this. We have a lot of karma we do every day, and it comes back in different forms. And the Buddha's teaching is, okay, we know that it's inevitable. What you can do is, can you reduce from 900 to maybe 600, maybe 500? And how do you do that? If you spend a moment carefully, mindfully, instead of reacting, if you can respond to those thoughts, strong thoughts and emotions, maybe we will have less karma, which leads to reduction in accumulation of karma, and which leads to more cycle of samsara. And even not many cycle of samsara, even in this life, if you only think of this one life, we have less to suffer, less to go through, and it's easier. And that's the Buddha's core teaching, trying to purify mind and have more peace in life. So I think that should be the message for today, and I think I can take questions. Yes.
Thank you very much again. Nice to see you for the message, for the Dharma talk today. It came to my mind a question concerning if you became, let's say, you became if you start handling daily basis karma and you're doing well, can you get to the ground on which you, as a human, you can start making miracles, helping people in the way, let's say, in healing way? You high your level of karma to positive karma, and you could get to the level in human stage to make miracles, helping people, let's say, cure from diseases.
So human beings, human life has certain governing rules. Now, one thing we practice in Sri Lanka is that we share merit, right? We do some good deeds, offering dana, meditating. So we accumulate some, we call punya, which is merit. I think that's a translation. And unfortunately, you cannot transfer human merit to another human. I think what you meant by miracles could be like if somebody is sick, can you give your merit to cure that person's ailment? Unfortunately, no, if the person is human. But there are certain life, certain realm where you can share merit, transfer merit, which is non-human. And there's only one place called Paradatupa Jivi. It's a certain realm where they can get merit from us. They can receive merit from us. However, if you change the meaning of miracle, if you meant by influencing people, making like loving kindness, the practice of loving kindness is a sort of miracle, and it can happen, but it's not just because you wanted to do it. Like I can think of some examples, like Buddha's time, he was attempted murder so many times, and one of them was sending a drunken elephant, a Nalagiri, and everybody freaked out. So long story short, Buddha was standing there, and the elephant didn't hurt the Buddha because of his boundless compassion toward humans and non-humans. Now that happens not only there, even in other places. Like I vaguely remember an incident in Sri Lanka. This man was saved because he was a blind man. He used to feed fish, and during tsunami in 2001, he was protected by his good deed. He didn't die, even he was living close to the ocean. So it seems like miracle, but it's not like he wanted to use this karma to save life. So it can happen in some ways, influencing people, and the other energy wise, if you talk, Buddha gave one example of how people attract certain types of personalities. Like Sariputta, the monk who was champion of wisdom, he was very wise monk, he attracted wise people. And there was Moggallana, the monk who was champion of miracles, he attracted other monks who liked to do psychic miracles. Devadatta, on the other hand, who was a troublemaker, attracted people with troublemaking. So to me, that's what you see. If you are in the field which you have more to do positive, you attract those positivity. You can call it miracle, you can call it your practice, but other than that, like healing, like you touching someone's forehead and doing that, I don't think we believe in such practices.
Do you mention that going to another ground, higher ground, not human, with merit, you can, in that stage, can transfer healing? What is that level? So a lot of, we Buddhists believe in a lot of stages of life, like humans, non-humans, animals, devas, so we have a lot of realm. And there is one stage which is like a transition stage. After a human dies, typically there is a short period of time. It's a conceptual, and nobody has seen or proven, but it's a conceptual stage where people wait to be born in another realm. So it could be higher or lower realm. When somebody dies and stays in that realm, we call Paradattu Pajivi, which means dependent life realm. Dependent life realm. In that realm, human can transfer merit. And that's the long-term practice in Sri Lanka, in lots of Theravada countries. When somebody passes away, we invite monks, offer dana, do some kind of religious practice, and share merit with them. So that helps them to go to a better life. So that's the only realm you can share merit, not among humans, not to other beings. Yeah.
Like next Sunday, we're doing the Ulambana.
Oh, okay. So that is. So we still have that even here. Yeah, I think it may have different names.
Yes. We call Ulambana. It's a Maharjan tradition. Offering merit for the departure.
Departed ones. So we still do that.
In what he explained, in Theravada tradition, we can offer the merit for the departure relative certain times only. Just somebody die after. We have in Maharjan tradition also 45 days, 7 weeks something.
7 weeks, yeah.
Within 7 weeks we can offer something like. We in Theravada tradition, I think less than that we do
7 days, 3 months.
3 months, something like. But however, regarding about the ASIC question, we cannot do any kind of miracle, healing power or anything according to our teaching, Buddhist teaching, is we can do kind of wishes, the practicing meditation, and we can wish you will be well and happy. But let's say somebody is seriously sick, we can blessing, we can chanting, we can do that. It will help, but not really miracle where right away he is dead, finish everything, no sickness. Cannot do like that. Yes.
And I think just to be cautious, this is not recent. I was in Monterey maybe in 2014 or 15, went to give a talk. There was a really unfortunate incident. Some Buddhist temple or some monastery, they told this 2 people that they can cure depression by practicing meditation, something related to miracle, and they accepted that, and they did. Unfortunately, they committed suicide later because misguided. And I was asked, a professor from UCLA, she asked me, do you believe in such thing? And I had to be very clear. I practice clinical therapy, and I have to say no, I don't promise, I don't prescribe. You must seek help, professional help. These things are more for prevention. than cure. Once you have that problem, you must follow those protocol. But if you are healthy, if you have no problem with any of those mental or physical ailment, you might prevent a lot. You might prevent lots of miraculous troubles. So I think Mr. Sir has a question.
Thank you for the talk. I have a question because many parents have very large ambitions for their children, like going to certain school and the test and winning competition. Does that create negative karma, or is that kind of understandable? Or?
Having that expectation?
Yeah, and very large. Even, of course, recently even parents bribe, if you have enough money, you can.
Oh, I see.
School to get in, because you love your child and you want them to get into this school or whatever. I mean, is that bad?
Well, I think ethically it's wrong, because you're taking away someone's space, someone's opportunity, and karmically I think we are Buddhist. We talk from cause and effect point of view, right? We do something like the Newton's theory. Every action has opposite and equal reaction. Karma is similar. If you begin with a lie, it just begets more lies, and it ends up in more casualty. And I teach in school, and sometime before the exam, there are some students, they don't obey the rule, they try to cheat, this dishonesty happens. And I give them one example. I think it's an actual incident in India. There's a student bribed to pass a medical exam, and she got the doctor's degree, and now she was in the surgery room. She has to perform the surgery. Now you can imagine, if you bribed to pass the exam, you cannot bribe to save a life now. You are tested now. So it comes, that's where we are devaluing our qualities of skill, qualities of education. So parents, yes, parents have a role from Buddhist point of view. I'll tell you, there are 5 responsibilities. Right? We have to teach them right and wrong. We have to guide them to right path, keep them away from bad associates, marry them untimely, and inherit them whatever you can. So those are 5 principles that Buddha gave as a parents, your responsibility. Now there is 2, Papa Nivaranti. Your biggest job is to keep them away from bad influence. And if you start with that, finding a school where you can use your money to send that place, I don't think when the child grows up, theoretically they won't appreciate, because if you keep it secret, they might, but in long run it has strong disharmony, and they might lose faith in parents. You don't want to do that. Ethically and karmically, there is also some consequences. So the starting is the bad cause. Yes, sir.
Hi. Number one, thank you for your talk. Number two, I just want to say, so I know with Buddhism you can't kill, or you shouldn't kill any being. But how about the underage kids, or kids who or if their parents force them to get an abortion, right? So you can't kill. So is their karma? Can they change their karma, even though perhaps, let's say, the child didn't want to get an abortion, but the parents forced her? Or if she wanted to get an abortion, is the fact that she killed, is her karma going to be affected long term, or will she have the possibility to change it?
That's very complicated, right? Well, if you think of life, where this life begins, it's very early stage. So I think within few days after conception, there is a migration of a consciousness, and we consider that as the beginning of life. But it's very tricky, because I think I like to think of your intention. your intention. Now I'll keep that for later, but think of this way. If they do lots of, so my wife is pregnant, so that's what I was about to tell, and we went through this test. We have genetic tests now to trying to find out any kind of genetic anomalies, and what if they find one? Now it's a very difficult stage you are at, right? And this example, I think I heard from S.N. Goenka, he used, if you use a knife to rob somebody, you hurt somebody and take the money away, your intention is to hurt and take, right? One is hatred. You must have hatred to hurt somebody, you must have desire to take something. So that involves those two unwholesome roots. And the positive root is, if a doctor used the same knife or similar knife to save someone's life, and let's say when doctor conducted that operation, the patient dies. Now doctor's intention was not to hurt and take something. His intention was to conduct the surgery and save a life, but sometimes patient could die because the procedure didn't go well. They tried everything but didn't work out. Now in those two scenarios, the thief and the doctor, they did the same action, but the intention was different. Now when you abort, now if a parent who has a child with this very complicated genome, and they found before the birth, and doctor is giving them option, you can have this child, the child is not going to live for too long, there will be these complications, all these possible outcomes, and you have the other option, you can conduct abortion and reduce this process. Now it's up to the parents. You have to choose your intention. If you intend to just overcome the problem versus like, I don't want my child to suffer every day. And I have seen cases, my wife is occupational therapist, she sees this neurodevelopmental kids with a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, how they cannot sit straight, their spine is not supported, a lot of complicated situations. And I think if you are able to have that clear mind, find out what is your intention, that's where this result comes to. Parents' intention, just get rid of this trouble, maybe out of hatred, that might be more bad karma, versus like knowing that child is going to suffer more problems. There will be some results, but it won't be that bad. So that's my best.
How karma work on negligence? How karma treat negligence?
Negligence? You mean like ignorance?
No, making a mistake unconsciously.
Oh.
Let's say the doctor forgot piece of cotton inside the body of the person. They sew the skin, and later on the person come out with problems and die. I mean, but he didn't put the intention.
Okay.
But it was a mistake, and how karma work on that?
I think that's a very first thing I started last talk. So Chetanang Bhikkhave Kammang Vadami. Intention is the root of action. And that's what makes Buddhist concept of karma different from any other karma. Hinduism talk about karma, I think some other religions talk about karma. Buddhism talks about karma from intention, your volition. You thought about it, you knew what you're doing. And if you have no intention, you have absent intention, that action is not considered karma. So in your example, somebody happened to have somebody locked in a room, forgot, didn't know there was a human, and the person dies. From Buddhist point of view, the person who does not accrue any karma because he did not have intention to do so. However, if you look at the other side, the person who was locked might have some karmic result, might have to do with some karma, but not the person who did without intention. Now, don't get me wrong with these two difference. One is intention, and two is like ignoring. You know, sometimes people do things without knowing that there will be a karmic result. That's not free from karma. Ignorance is not as equal as unintentional. It should be clear, right? Just like the law. You know, you drive on freeway, you didn't know you can't go about 100 miles per hour, you get pulled over and you tell the cops, "Oh, I'm sorry sir, I didn't know." Do you think you get over it? You may not. You will be penalized for what you did. So karma, and in Milinda Prashna, it's a question of King Milinda, Venerable Nagasena, he explains this difference. Now, I don't know if I told here, it's a very common story I tell. So let's say this is a very hot bottle, you know, it's burning heat, and imagine you have to grasp it. Knowing that this is super hot, how would you grasp this bottle? How do you guys grasp this bottle?
Very carefully.
Very carefully, because you know it's hot. If you touch it's going to burn you. So you try to be extra cautious when you grasp it, right? Now, the second scenario, this is again very hot bottle, burning heat, and you have to grasp this bottle. You have no clue it's hot. How would you grasp this time? Just like you normally do, right? You just go for it. Now, in those two scenarios, who gets higher degree of burning? The person who knew it was hot, or the person who did not know it was hot? Definitely the person who did not know, because he was not cautious about grasping the bottle. Now, apply that scenario, those analogy, to the knowledge of karma. You know, if you did not know that killing was bad and you still killed, you will try your best not to kill, just like you will try your best not to burn yourself. Versus the person who has no clue killing is bad will do it with full joy and happiness and get more burning. And I tell this in sometime when I was working in jail, I told this to my inmates. You know, you didn't know that drug was bad, and how would you take those drugs? You will do it with full joy, right? You have no fear, no looking back, you just do it with full force. Versus if you have some ideas, drug is bad, it is very addictive, it can cause problem, family, social problem, you might do it, but you will be some cautious, you will try to not do it because you know the consequence. So that's the very important part, you know, unintentional, which is genuine no intention, does not accrue any karma. Ignorance, if you do anything without knowing that there's a result, it might damage more, versus when you know. That's the benefit of listening Dhamma talk, that when you listen to Dhamma, know about karma, know about these ideas, you are aware. Next time when you do anything, you might take a little more time to think, okay, should I do it or not? So it's tricky. Yes.
Last question.
Yes.
How do you know in daily basis when you are doing well with karma? Like you say that in a daily basis you make 20 merits, but probably there are hundreds that they are right there. How do you know that the rest of they are positive and helping you? How do you handle that in life?
I wish I can create a meter for that. You know, I can measure how much people are doing good and bad, and there's like light bulb going on. But there are ways you can use sometime reflection. That's the biggest one. And I tell sleep, you know, people how good they sleep without, if you have medical condition like sleep apnea or some sleep related other issues may not work, but how is your sleep? That can tell about your state of mind, right? If you are well rested, you can sleep without not many thoughts going on. That could be one indication you're doing more good than bad. And you have a constant fear, constant anxiety about what's going to happen tomorrow, that person going to do or that person going to say. That's a sign that you're not doing well on the daytime. and that's the Pali called Dhamma. You smoke a lot at night, which means you think a lot at night because you spend whole day mindlessly. And the other indication is like reflection. That's called every now and then you have to use the Dhamma, your knowledge of Dhamma, and reflect how well you're doing. And sometime you want to test looking back to your life and see what you have done. And this one good example from Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha used this story of Grim Reaper. In Pali we call Yamaraja, the Lord of Death. And his story, it's a long story, so I'll tell briefly. He gives this analogy: someone dies and he's taken to the court of death. Now when you're sitting there, you will be questioned, you will be interviewed by this Lord of Death, and he will ask you, when you saw somebody getting sick, somebody was sick, somebody was having this health problem, did you reflect on life? And if you have, then you are sent to the heaven. If you have not, then you are sent to like a more painful place. And he will ask, when you saw somebody is getting old, did you reflect in your life? And yes, no, so health, illness, old age, and sick, dead person, when you see these conditions of life, did you reflect about yourself? And the other part, I think it's very subjective. You must feel that, if you are doing more good, you have more peace. And I used to tell, when there are, especially the senior monks, have you guys felt like, around certain people, you feel pleasant, you feel peace, you feel like nice, and you want to converse, you want to talk, you want to be around certain people. Now to me, that aura, that glow has to do with how much that person does good or bad. Not because of some benefit, but the person is genuinely pleasant, and you must feel that too. And if you are not, then you will feel the impact of your bad deeds. Every day you're losing friends, you're pushing away all good people, and sleep is not good, mind is not peaceful. So those are some indication. One is sleep, the other one is reflection. You might be able to use that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about mindfulness. Now that we heard a lot about mindfulness, what is different between mindfulness that people talk about, mindfulness meditation, and right mindfulness from the Eightfold Path? Is it any different, or this is similar?
I think there are some similarities. So people, what they talk about mindfulness, the weirdest thing I have seen is they talk about having sex mindfully. Now they have taken above and beyond the idea of mindfulness. Now that having sex mindful doesn't happen because it is not right mindfulness, but eating mindfully can happen because there you're trying to be reflective of the process of eating, right? You're not trying to indulge in food, you're not trying to seek more. So in Western ideas, mindfulness has been taken out of the context. That's the difference. But still I see similarity. They emphasize on attending, having attention, and also being open. That's another word I like, how the Western definition is, being open to experience, allowing whatever thoughts and feelings to come in and not taken away from those thoughts and feelings. One thing I disagree with the definition part is like a non-judgmental. Now when you say non-judgmental, it cannot be right mindfulness. So if a person is trying to shoot somebody, a sniper, he can be very mindful, right? Just like a cat. That's the most mindful animal you would ever see. They will be sitting there watching for their prey for a long time. And that's very seems quiet and mindful. But is it right mindful? To me, it's not. That's where Buddhist mindfulness is different. When we say right mindfulness, it should be free from desire, it should be free from hatred, it should be free from delusion. Now, desire, trying to gain something. If are you using mindfulness to gain something, then it's not Buddhist right mindfulness. And if you're trying to use mindfulness to hurt somebody, then it is with this root of hatred. It's not right mindfulness. And if you're using delusion, you're not sure about what you're practicing, what you're doing with this doubt and fear, then it's not right mindful. So instead of the way I differentiate is I will examine those three. Is your mindfulness based on free from hatred, free from delusion, free from desire? Then that is right mindfulness. And of course there are four foundations, right? Kaya, Chitta, Kaya, Vedana, Chitta, Dhamma. So those are four foundations of mindfulness, and we use those wholesome roots to cultivate mindfulness in those four bases. And in other practices that we hear very commonly, every time I go to Barnes and Nobles, every time I see some magazine, some news about mindfulness, they have overused the word, and we're losing the meaning, the value of this word. It's less practice, more use. Just like the word unique. Do you guys know how unique is the word unique now? It's not unique anymore. It's so cliche because we use all the time, and it lost the value of the word. And that's what I feel about the word mindfulness. It's used so many times, so many places, we're losing the actual value. So there is a difference. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I said my last question, but it came one more question. Basically, you were talking. You mentioned about sexual can be mindfulness. Now when you said that, the sexuality, it came to my mind the Hinduism practice, the ancient practice of Kama Sutra. Kama Sutra is what my understanding is like being sex, doing mindfulness on it. I'm wrong on that. I don't want to put us in a.
I think Kama Sutra it's an art of sex. So the sutra means there's a formula of sex, which is totally different than what Buddhist idea of mindfulness, because there the sole purpose of Kama Sutra is sensual entertainment. How can you have the best sex using these formulas, where mindfulness is exact opposite, how you can stay away from the sensual entertainment, sensual pleasure. So it's a clear difference. Yeah.